Maria must also consider the agencies, the partners, and the documents related to her properties. Each entity may have differing requirements on interpreting and implementing average income, which impacts how Maria and her on-site managers complete their work and maintain compliance at the property. Maria put together a list of their Virginia partners so her coworkers know which part they play. The IRS published federal rules about the average income minimum set-aside election. The owner is responsible for adhering to the legal and practical application of average income. Currently, the IRS has not released guidelines for implementing this statutory change. VHDA is the HFA and is responsible for administering and monitoring the Federal Housing Credit Program in Virginia. Remember, since Maria has properties in different states, the other HFAs may have different requirements for average income. While HFAs like VHDA provide guidance to the owners for compliance and monitoring, they do not instruct owners on how to manage the minimum set-aside requirements for their properties, including the new average income election. Maria knows that each property owner and other partners may have their own best practices and policies regarding compliance and monitoring, which may add additional requirements. Remember, it's the owner's responsibility to ensure average income is implemented in compliance with the law. Maria must also consider the property documents issued by VHDA, which are essential for her to effectively manage the properties and pipeline of potential tenants. These documents include, but are not limited to, the Qualified Allocation Plan, or QAP, the VHDA Housing Credit Manual, the VHDA Housing Credit Application Workbook, the IRS 8609 form with Part 2 signed by the owner, and the Extended Use Agreement, or EUA. These documents should be referred to throughout the life of the property and maintained at each property. The QAP identifies the selection criteria to be used for determining housing priorities in Virginia and gives preference to projects serving the lowest income tenants for the longest periods with the highest number of low-income units. The QAP also guides compliance with the project rules based upon the year the property was awarded federal housing credits. The Tax Credit Manual supports the VHDA QAP and provides guidance and instructions for policies and qualifications related to the Federal Housing Credit Program. The VHDA Average Income Minimum Set-Aside Requirements for Implementation can be found in the Appendix section of the VHDA Tax Credit Manual. Copies of the QAP and Housing Credit Application Workbook documents can be found on VHDA's website at vhda.com/housing credits. Another key document is the owner's completed Housing Credit Application Workbook. The owner submits the workbook before the property is built and on-site staff is hired. The VHDA workbook includes the unit mix, point categories, and other property requirements to maximize VHDA approval of an allocation of tax credits. The unit mix for the minimum set-aside, including the average income, is identified on the Unit Details page in the VHDA workbook. Once the owner's housing credit application is approved for funding and units are ready for occupancy, VHDA issues Part 1 of the IRS 8609 form to the owner with the housing credit amount for each building. The owner must complete Part 2 of the IRS 8609 form to select the minimum set-aside election and define the project. Once Part 2 is complete, the owner must sign the form, then submit it to the IRS and VHDA. Remember, VHDA requires the owner to select Yes in line 8B for a multiple building project. The IRS requires an attachment including the unit and building information for the qualified project. The EUA identifies the specific requirements the owner's project must meet to maintain housing credits and aligns with the QAP, the VHDA Housing Credit Workbook, and the IRS 8609 form. The EUA also lists the project's applicable fraction, which is the required total percentage of qualified low-income units required at all times in the project. Section 5 of the EUA contains the required occupancy restrictions, including income and rent limitations, and other requirements for the property for 30-plus years. In addition, it lists the required number of units for any properties using the average income minimum set-aside election. If applicable, a reallocation of housing credits does not terminate the requirements of the original EUA. The income and occupancy requirements for both agreements must be maintained through the termination date and will be included in the EUA for any reallocation. Be sure to view our other videos about Maria and to learn more about the average income minimum set-aside election.